And this is where NIST's Technology Transfer Program comes in, run by NIST's Technology Partnerships Office. The goal is to take research in technologies and discoveries made by NIST scientists and help in the commercialization of those results. And how do they do that? Well, we're really pleased to have with us on the show today Paul Zielinski, Director of the Technology Partnerships Office at NIST, to tell us. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Hi, Mike and Dirk. Thank you very much for inviting me today. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, great. So just briefly, before we get into the other questions, just what is the Technology Transfer Program?
So technology transfer is actually, just like what you were just talking about, actually a very simple concept in many different ways. We spend a lot of money in the federal government on research and development. As you mentioned, NIST budget is about $1 billion. You look government-wide, you're over $130 billion. And a really simple concept is, at the end of the day, we might do research on manufacturing, but we don't make anything. And so for these different products and services to reach the consumer, to reach the American public that funded this research, we have to transfer it. We have to get this in the hands of a company, a private company, that's going to actually make and sell products that you can buy. And that's really where we're focused in our technology transfer program. We have a lot of different ways to do that, but at the end of the day, it's all focused on the same thing. It's how do we get the results of our research program out into the public sector.
So Paul, step us through how that works. Does NIST make some sort of industry announcement regarding a technology? Do companies contact you? What happens at that point?
Sure, we have a lot of different ways that we like to use to get our technologies out there. I mean, obviously we put out standards, we work with standards bodies, but in the United States, of course, a lot of those standards, they're public standards, they're not necessarily just set by NIST. So that's, of course, one of our main things that we do. But we do a lot of other things. We certainly do patent things. We have inventions. We have joint inventions with many folks. And so we will patent those things and we will license them off. And hopefully someone can take those and run with them and create a company. We have a lot of different tools to work in partnership with people. So, we don't have all of the ideas out there, certainly. We'd love to work with other parties that can come in and collaborate with us. Hopefully they can learn something from us and take that research out there and make something within their company that's going to actually benefit the public. We've got a lot of informal relationships, we have formal relationships, we have user facilities, we have lots of different ways, hopefully, that we can reach the public with some of these things that they've already really paid for with their tax dollars for research programs here at NIST.
Well, okay, so you just said something really interesting there about they've already paid for it with the tax dollars. So if a company sees something or reads about something that NIST has done some work on, looks like it might be ready for commercialization, do you just give that to them? I mean, they could make the argument, hey, we already paid for it, just give us that. Or do they pay for a license? Is there a patent transfer or something like that? I mean, kind of what does a company get when they come to NIST and say, we like that technology, we want to try to incorporate that into a product?
Sure, and so the whole concept here, when you get down to something like patent and licensing, is actually kind of interesting. So Congress gave us the ability to patent things. And their whole policy statement, if you read it, basically comes down to the idea that business operates in the world of intellectual property. They patent things, and they'd use that intellectual property to call forth their private investment. And so that's really the same concept that we're actually working with. We want to work with industry in the way that they work, not necessarily in the way that the government works. So no, we're not trying to do defensive patenting. We don't do things to try to keep things from the marketplace or to keep it to ourselves. Our patenting and licensing is really directed towards trying to get things out there. We don't want the government to have to keep paying for everything. We can't afford to fund every single product into full development and release to the public. We need private investment to come in. We need entrepreneurs. We need businesses that are looking to expand their product lines. And so we will patent things, and then we actually have a defined product that we can then transfer. If you look at our royalties, we're not trying to make a killing. Some would argue that we should charge more royalties, I'm sure. That's not the point of what we're trying to do. The point is actually trying to bring some funding back and reward the folks that do it, that do the inventing and try to call forth those inventions and actually get them to think about those inventions. But generally, it's a matter of really trying to work with companies and try to get them to invest their time, their effort, their resources in trying to launch something that, might be a great idea from NIST, but it's going to require more work to get out there in the marketplace. And that's really what we're trying to call forth.
So, I mean, now, what I just described, that was like, let's say, a technology that's it's pretty much done. You know how it's going to work, and I think you're going to give us some examples pretty here. But suppose somebody's watching our show, and we've talked about some research that NIST is doing on some sort of optical technology, and it's still in the research phase, but it piques somebody's interest. Can a private party get involved in the research to kind of co-develop it? I mean, or is it really one of those things, wait till NIST is done and then you pick it up from there?
Oh, absolutely. People can get involved. We actually got a very effective mechanism. We can do, like I said, anything from very formal to very informal. We have a thing called a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement. Really, any federal lab can do these things. It's a very broad authority for us to partner with pretty much anybody. We can private companies, universities, state and local governments, very wide open. And we can actually do joint research. Now, when you think about what we're going to do, it's got to be mission oriented. So we're not going to basically change our mission to do whatever anybody wants us to do. We're actually trying to do things, accomplish what we're told by Congress to do and by the president. But at the same time, if you think about it as a journey and we're walking in the right direction, sure, we're happy to walk with someone a while, and hopefully they take a benefit out of that. Because again, the goal of our research is to get people to use that work. It's not to keep it in a box, it's not to keep it away from folks. We want people to commercialize that work. We wanted to make it available to the public.
Okay, and finally, Paul, can you give us an example of some technology that was developed by NIST that has now been, commercialized or is in a product?
Sure. NIST has a very broad mission, as you've already been talking earlier. You've had several of the different areas that we work on, so we cover a lot of different things. So if you think about some of the NIST products, a couple examples might be, we have a RoboCrane technology. It actually came out of our engineering laboratory looking at advanced manufacturing type of applications, and actually is being used by a company in the cleanup over in Chernobyl and over at the Fukushima nuclear reactor after the earthquake in Japan. So it's actually, a very adaptable tool in order to go into places that, you don't want to send people into those things to do that cleanup operation. Shifting to a totally different area, for example, we also have things like for breast phantoms. So if you're going to go through an MRI machine because you're worried about a cancer or something, or a tumor, you want to make sure that the results of that are accurate. And so, for example, we've developed phantoms. You can make sure that your machine is actually giving you the readings that you expect for those machines to be giving you, and making sure that the patient's going to receive the right type of treatment. But again, we've done many, many different types of inventions, not all of which are always patented, but we try to work with any way we can in order to get those technologies out of NIST and over to the consumer.
All right, well, that's all really interesting, Paul. Thanks for joining us this morning. This is Paul Zielinski, Director of the Technology Partnerships Office over there at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Paul, thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
Thanks,
Have a good
Paul.
day.